There we go. Hello, everyone. This is Between Two Teachers. And we are presenting today what we shared at a conference recently, the California Latino School Board Association conference. And it was a very successful and informative. We just felt that we needed to continue to share this and make it so that others as well could share. It's very exciting. So this is, it was Between Two Teachers was on the road. And so we're bringing this information to you. And so today is, what is today? Today's Friday, September 2nd. And my name is Consuelo Lara.
And my name is Madeline Cronenberg. And if you're new to this channel or you watched this presentation last week in Monterey at the conference, we welcome you to Between Two Teachers. This presentation was designed to talk about school violence. And so the first slide, which you see here, is a depiction of recent school violence. And of course, the most recent is Uvalde, Texas, where 21 people died, children and teachers died at Robb Elementary. And that tragedy is what got us discussing this at Between Two Teachers, and really was the reason that we created this presentation. Because when you look at it, and even just look at these other mass shootings in the United States, it's horrific. I mean, and since Sandy Hook, or since Columbine, which was the first one, we haven't learned enough. I think we've learned some things, but we haven't learned enough. So if you look at the numbers, there's the deadliest shooting, that we even have a deadliest mass shooting list. That fact is purely American. Only in America do you have that list, right? Only in America are children afraid to go to school.
Yeah. And our focus here is what can board members, school board members, district board members, county board members, what can we do? So that's going to be our focus.
That's it. That is our total focus here. And so that if you are a board member, please listen and look at the tactics and strategies we're going to talk about. If you're not a board member, if you're a parent, share this with your board members, right? Understand that when people think, oh, there's nothing we can do, that's not true. There are things you can do. You can empower it, and your children then can know that you are doing something. So this is just this list. This is us, and if you're watching us now, you need the QR code, because the QR code is what would get you to join the Between Two Teachers YouTube channel. But if you haven't joined it, you're welcome to take a picture of it and come on and subscribe to our channel. That's us. We've got we have almost 200. It's amazing how long we've been doing this. A long time. We do this every week. We talk about all sorts of different issues in education. So you can travel back in time if you go and look at the channel, or you can just subscribe and join us in the future.
And please pass it on.
Yes, please pass it on. So this is where it starts, where everyone says the same thing. They say it will never happen here. And they've said that in Uvalde and Stockton and Littleton and Newtown, all over America. And you can just see how many this is just the list of school shootings from 2008 to 2022.
Oh, Jesus.
This is, and the striking thing is, if we went up to Canada, it would be blank.
Yeah.
Right? If you went to Mexico, it would be blank. These are places, and certainly Mexico has all sorts of guns, but not school shootings. School shootings is an American problem. It truly, truly is, and it will happen. And if it's not the shooting, there are all these other dangerous things, or shootings that are just outside of a school, that certainly have an impact on your school community.
And also note that these are completed shootings. Okay, so there were also attempted or foiled.
Averted. That's the word they use in the report is averted shootings. And averted is good. That means that people did have strategies in place that they weren't just averted by accident. It's not like, there was some accidental thing that happened. They were averted because they were stopped. And they were stopped because strategies were put in place.
Exactly. We'll talk about those.
Yes, we'll talk about this. So here it is. This is the mantra. It will never happen here. This is a picture of the Uvalde families and their beautiful little children who they lost in May. And it is the kind of thing that you must continue to keep uppermost in your mind. It can happen. Some of the strategies that we'll talk about in a minute, there were strategies that were brought forth after Columbine and after Newtown and that are going to come up again. And the thing is, they don't magically happen unless board members and education professionals and staff put them into place.
Yes.
And monitor them. That is what has to happen. Otherwise, your school is not safe.
Yeah, you're very vulnerable.
And that's what you really must know. No one is immune.
Yeah. So I want to share what experience I had at Helms Middle School. I'm a retired teacher, of course, and I taught at Helms Middle School here in San Pablo for about 16 years. And I remember early when we have a new school now, but back in the old school, there was like, when I got there, about 2,000 students in this school. It was unbelievable. 2002, I guess, is when I got there. And there was a lot of gang activity in the area at that time also. So it was very difficult. And one of the things that the administration at that time did was we did community mapping, so we knew about the community, but we also did the students did a survey on where they felt most safe on campus. And I'm sure this helped with supervision and where to put supervisors and what to block off and not, and where they needed to watch out for where there was fights or whatever. So one of the places we got the results, the teachers did, and one of the places where the students felt the most safe was in the classroom. And I remember I was surprised by that, but I felt very proud of it. I thought, oh, because a teacher, you want to protect your kids and you want them to feel safe. And they felt safe in our classrooms. And so that was wonderful. And that, like I said, must have been 2005, maybe something like that. And to be here now talking about what to do with an active shooter in your classroom, I can't handle it. And I just refuse to be silent. I can't do that. And as a board member, I was on the district board, now I'm on the county board of education, and there are things we can do. So that's why it just feels like, okay, this is my call to action. What do we do? Because I'm not going to accept this as okay or normal. And our students need to feel that again, that they are safe in our classrooms. And there are things we can do to get there. So that's the purpose of this. And that's what motivates us also.
Exactly. And West Contra Costa, I served on the school board in West Contra Costa for 12 years prior to Consuelo's joining that board. And it's an urban district. We had issues when we talk about, responses to tragedies. There was a point in time when we had a gang rape at a school that got national notoriety. It was a school that Consuelo was teaching in at the time. And the actions the board takes makes a difference in terms of how our students feel supported, how our staff feels supported. But right now across America, particularly after Uvalde, there were children who are afraid to go back to school, not just children in Uvalde, children all over America, children in your district who are terrified of being in a room where they don't feel safe because they know those other children were not safe. And if you don't respond to that, if you don't talk about it, that doesn't make it better. It's like anything else you don't talk about. It doesn't get better by itself. Gets better if you respond to it and do things. So we're going to talk about the things now that you can do. So there are resources, and there's a resource page at the end of this PowerPoint, and those resources are going to be linked to a sheet that you can go and just get them. And in there are documents, publications, best practices, and what the reports and reflections on past incidents and what has been learned from the past incidents. Right. One of the biggest ones that came to my attention was from United on Guns. Now notice that this exists. This is a resource. This is an American thing as well. A resource for US mayors and city managers, what to do in the first 24 hours after a mass shooting. Right? We have that many mass shootings in America that there's a checklist of protocols for mayors and city managers. I was unable to find, I found other types of responses from schools, but I didn't find this specific kind of checklist that somebody would get as soon as something happens, or that, and really you need to review it beforehand, right? And this deals with communications, emergency operations. This is so sad. Establish family reunification and assistance, establishing a victims fund, and then planning for recovery. Then there's also a playbook, and in the playbook, they have the case study on Parkland. And the case study on Parkland is points out the weaknesses of the system, and you can learn from the weaknesses of the safety strategies that they have in place at Parkland. Here's the school shooting checklist, and this is in that playbook. They have one specifically for schools where they talk about scheduling a tabletop exercise. The biggest things is collaboration between school officials and not only in law enforcement, but also city leaders in your community. Your mayor should know what's going on at your schools, and your law enforcement should come together. You all need to be able to communicate about what the issues are around safety in your community. They're different everywhere. Everybody's got different situations. But the thing that's not different is the need to continually communicate and let your staff and your students and your entire community know that you're doing it, that it's important. So there is no reason that a school board member can't go to a city council meeting and say, I think we need to talk about school safety because all of our children, our community is concerned.
Yes, yes. The conversation has to be, everybody gets to the table and talk about these issues and listen to the community as well. So yeah, absolutely.
So they have here, propose and participate in a planning team for school safety. Have periodic assessment of district mental health systems. The one key factor when you look at any of these tragedies is that the perpetrator was failed by our mental health system. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? That is, there was no safety net.
No.
There wasn't. In the averted cases, there was a safety net.
Yes. But
in the others, there's not. And I propose that we really need to look at school shootings more as domestic violence than anything else, because your school is a family. And each of these people who came back, they're all young men. Each of these young men who returned to their school to shoot were acting out of tremendous emotion and anger and vengeance and whatever all those emotions were. And they targeted the school because the school was somewhere where they were hurt. They were at home. They went back just like you would. And in many cases, they shot their families at home first.
Yep.
It was an extension of their home. So it is a domestic violence.
Absolutely.
It's an incident of domestic violence. So they talk about appropriate trainings, exercises, and drills, how you handle them. You need to look at and think about how they're done. And they need to be redone because your staff has turnover. Everybody has turnover. So the fact that you did it last year, you still have to do it again. You need communication channels. The whole process of declaring an emergency, calling the governor, and all the recovery, how you're going to go through recovery are all important parts of this. And that's in the playbook.
Yes.
the thing that education departments do, I pulled this one out from Virginia because they created one after, I guess after Virginia Tech. Anyway, it's just an example. There are many, many models wherever you are in the world. I'm sure you've got a crisis, some sort of crisis management plan. You should have. The question is, how often does it get reviewed? Right? And after, certainly after a tragedy, right now, when the energy is high around this, you should be in the process of publicly reviewing it.
Yep.
Right? And these are very comprehensive documents. And the other thing to look at is, and I just wanted to point this out, is after action reports. Right, the biggest one was the Newtown shooting, right, at Sandy Hook. The after action report is where the recommendations are. Uvalde has an after action report where you could go in and basically the police, this is put out by the Policing Institute, the police do their own review. Now, Uvalde has issues with the police response. Theirs is going to be have that additional part to it. In Sandy Hook, there was no issue about police response. However, one of the things in Sandy Hook that was an issue was the doors, right? We need to do an audit of doors. And one of the things that people need, for whatever reason, when your schools were built and the doors were set up a certain way for the security at the time that the building was built, that's one thing. But you need to really rethink how your doors work and if they meet the needs of the security needs of children today. The doors came up in Sandy Hook and the doors came up again in Uvalde because the families in the Uvalde community did not pay attention to the Sandy Hook recommendations.
Exactly. Yeah. Very good.
Right. So the recommendations, there are many. There's the state of the schools safety report. This is also about collaborating and coping with traumatic events in school, so that there's the whole emotional part of it. And we need to really look at the mental health, how we handle mental health issues. And also, honestly, when you get down to the averted attacks, this is a whole report on completed school attacks, like a comparison of averted and completed school attacks from the Police Foundation. And the averted, look at this, we have it, this is how common this is in America, that we have an averted school violence database. I mean, that is a stunning fact that exists. Right? And this is the world our children are growing up in, but it does. And if you are in a position where you make decisions, you need to know that, and you need to know what the takeaways are.
Yeah. We have to learn from all of these things to prevent this stuff from happening. Absolutely.
And the biggest takeaway is that you need to have communication and support for disaffected students. Because that's what we had here. I mean, in the Uvalde case, and he's not dissimilar from the other shooters. He dropped out. Whatever all of his circumstances were, they were not supported by the mental health community in Uvalde.
Exactly.
And that has to be what we learn from this. You were elected to lead. And that means you need to communicate with your community, accept accountability for what's happened, whatever it is, and not be silent.
Yeah. One of the things when the Uvalde happened, it was hard for me to watch, especially hearing blunder after blunder after blunder, and these children are being shot, etc. But when I really started watching and listening was when they finally had a board meeting, because they kind of just ignored it for too long. And I could listen to the parents, because no, those parents are going to come to you as a board, as an elected person. They're going to come to you and want to know, what did you do? What are you doing to prevent this from happening again? All of that. We got emails, from parents. How do I know my schools are safe in this county? And I want to be able to answer that question. And so you will be one of the persons they want accountability. you're going to be on that list of, okay, what was your role in this? So, yeah, and I just picture myself on that dais, and what am I going to say? How am I going to respond? So, and like it says, you can expect there will be lawsuits. So, yeah.
And that's a given. So you get the, you're going to be told there are going to be lawsuits, and you're going to be told that in order to be a good defendant in the lawsuit, don't say anything. Your attorney will take care of it, right? Just let your attorney take the lead. And honestly, from the standpoint of specific legal issues, you want to listen to your attorney. From the standpoint of creating policy, your own policy, and the policy of how you're going to, and representing and supporting the community that elected you, your attorney is not a person who should even be advising you. This is something that you were elected to do. You need to take your own counsel. You can get information from other people, but you need to understand you were selected because your community wanted you to lead them. And when they need support and leadership, you need to speak up and be courageous enough to do it, and not hide behind some rules that an attorney put in that really were in the interests of the lawsuit and not in the interests of your community.
Yeah, yeah. Represent your community and come from a place of compassion. This is children. These are people's babies, and just keep that in mind. Yeah.
Just
So
be clear on that. And the fact that your attorneys who will be there, and I will tell you that they're the first ones people are going to, that's the first phone call your superintendent is going to make, is to the attorneys, right? That is just what's going to happen. And that's fine, but you need to be clear on your own, on who you are and why you're there, right? And the superintendent has a different role in the organization. So that's that. Now there are action steps. We are up to where you can take action.
yes. So Uvalde happened on May the 24th, and it was just, everybody's in shock, of course. And on June the 3rd, the California Latino School Board Association, I'm on their mailing list, and we got an email that talked about a resolution, and it talked about this tragedy. And I thought, oh, well, that's great. That's what we need to do. That's new, something I knew I could do, and I've done in the past. And you can refer to those resolutions and say, you know, here's our values, and now we need to act on those values, and you can build on it. So those were some things when I focused on what can I do, actually do. And the resolution was the first thing. And also the putting together of a safety committee, because boards can put together their committees. And also one parent was saying, is there going to be a safety summit? Well, that's a great idea. How about a county-wide convening of just those people that you mentioned, Madeline, about the city officials and electeds, also CBOs. There's people, anti-violence nonprofits out there who are in the business of doing this, domestic violence, all of those people, and your district officials coming together and talking about this countywide, how to come up with some real good solutions from the community. So there are things we can do. Electeds can talk to other electeds. And there was, when I was looking at that school shooting checklist, I think it's about slide 8, a lot of the things are from that are in this resolution. So we're going to look at that as well.
Right. So the resolution wasn't written right after Uvalde, unfortunately, because we have such a history of this. This resolution predated Uvalde. Uvalde just brought it back up again because it's the most recent occurrence of horrific violence in our schools. So, however, if everybody had a resolution, it's something board members can do, elevate the conversation, but the resolution has tactics and action steps in it. That's what will make a difference for your community.
Yeah.
They're not going to care that you pass the resolution. They're going to care when you go through those steps.
exactly, and you refer to it. So the shout out to the California Latino School Board Association who put this in the spotlight. And it really a well-written resolution template. And it was like 5 pages long. And I worked with my board president and we went through it and say, what can we want this, everybody to buy in on this. So there's things, you have to take out or change or modify, which is fine, because the thrust of it is, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to support safety first in our county. So there are some key things that are in this. And one is that we're going to look at our safety school plans and make sure they're updated and current, and that there's participation from school staff, teachers, parents that know what's in that plan. We're going to update the student handbooks. One of the issues is about the safe firearm storage. So many of these guns came from home where the guns and the bullet ammunition was not locked up. And so both parents and the students need to understand that the storage of these firearms is really important. And there's also sections on training, whether it's training on, there's so much, how to use the intercom for in an emergency. And also the warning signs kind of training for teachers and all kinds of training. And then of course, emergency campus safety training for your personnel in case these things happen. And then putting together a governing board, school safety committee to address these issues and to involve the community around your schools. Those are really important things to do. So one of the things, so after the resolution was passed on the 15th of June, and it passed unanimously. So I'm really proud of that and proud of our board for doing that. One of the key things in there was the establishing a school safety committee. Boards can put together their committees and they become board committees, and they can be advisory, they can make recommendations, and they bring those recommendations to the full board, and the full board are the ones who then pass those on to the administration. So we want this to be a standing committee that makes it public. Want to get teachers and staff, engaged in this as well, and invite law enforcement. Make those partnerships with our law enforcement agencies, community-based violence reduction programs, and come up with generating some community-based solutions. We can do that. So I want to be able to say to a parent, yes, we are doing something, and there's a place for you to come and speak and share what your concerns are on your issues. That's giving voice to the community that's suffering and traumatized by all of this. So in addition to that, what we're looking at is what would, if we did a county-wide school safety convening or summit of some kind, there's so much that we could address. One is security technology, like the doors and alarm systems, cameras, putting cameras around. The communication devices, how do you communicate to teachers in the classroom who are busy?
In Uvalde, the children were on, the second and the third and fourth graders were on their cell phones. They were making the phone calls.
Yeah.
From the room, right? I mean, we learned that as the tragic circumstances of Uvalde have come out into the public. Well, that and the anticipation of 8-year-olds on cell phones is probably not in your school safety plan.
That's right. That's right. So all of that's going to be taken into consideration. And then how do you get the word out as fast as possible to teachers? They're not going to be on their internet. They're not going to be on their email or even on their phone possibility. So possibly you need to have that covered. And also mental health services. Well, just increasing mental health services is not going to make a difference. You need to train teachers about warning signs and then what they can do. Okay, they recognize these warning signs, and then there's got to be that safety net for referrals. And you know what, even train the students to recognize that in their peers, any kind of warning signs. So again, the averted ones, somebody recognized, oh, my friend's not acting right, and they talk to somebody. And then of course the internet, this young man was on the internet and he was even telling people what he was going to do. So monitoring that, and that's a whole other area. And then just having the all hazard approach, that we're going to make sure, it's not just one thing that we're going to prepare for. We're going to prepare for all of these possibilities involving guns and violence, of course. So back to the accountability. Like I said, this is something that I am accountable. I was elected. So I want to know, and everybody wants to know, what's the chain of command? Who's in charge of what? And there was a lot of passing the buck on that thing. It was like, oh no, I wasn't in charge of it. Somebody else was. Well, we need to get that nailed down. Who is in charge, and what is the chain of command there for these events? So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done on all these levels, and a convening could bring all of these agencies together, talk about it. And I know one policymaker was saying that throughout the country, we should have a minimum level of, especially the security technology, that every public school has. And I think that's a brilliant idea to have it.
So there's several different pots here that we're talking about. And one of them is facilities. So when you do a review of your facilities, when you do a safety audit of your buildings, right? You can do safety audits. You can do one specifically of your buildings. Well, how do the doors work? Who has the keys in your building? If you have older buildings with keys, and there are millions and millions and millions of doors of just classrooms in the United States, are we looking at what we've seen is there have been circumstances where the weaknesses, that's the weak spot. That's the weak spot. When they talk about hardening the school, that's what they're talking about. The teacher should be able to close her door and lock her door. And that's not always possible. So you need to have a conversation around that. And you need to know whether or not, what steps you need to take around responding to doors. And then the rest of it, alarms, cameras, and there's so many different types of communications now. Your children are sitting in classrooms where they're looking at a tablet, that they're online, they're doing all sorts of work that they've never done before. People need to upgrade that communication so that's the whole facilities conversation. And you could separate that out. And if you had a facilities committee, you could just talk about safety from the standpoint of facilities. Just like you could also separate out the need to make sure that children have the mental health safety net that we know can help avert these problems.
Yes, absolutely. And board members, you can ask questions. You can ask a lot of questions at these board meetings. And one of them might be, when we last do a safety walkthrough, a needs assessment at our schools? When was the last time that was done? Where is it? Where's the report? Where can I see it? And where can I refer my constituents to come and see it? Yes, this was done. There was a review and here was the result. We need to have that on paper. It's not just enough to say, oh yeah, we do that. Oh, we do that. No, show me.
Right.
It was done and when.
Here's the result that it was done. Here's the list of things that were recommended to be fixed. And then here's the update of when they were fixed.
That's it. And that's what you can do as a board member. You can ask those questions. Where is that information? And absolutely.
And that the purpose of this convening is to put your community at peace, to let them know that things are being taken care of, that you are taking accountability and ownership for this area, for the safety of the children who are with you, which is the number one thing you need to do. So we do it for so many things, but we have to look at this as this is what children and our families are having nightmares about. And it's really a mistake to diminish it and trivialize it and not put it right there front and center as something that we're going to address.
Exactly. Okay, and then as elected, educate yourself, your state and federal advocacy,
Right.
what legislation is out there around gun laws and red flag laws, gun violence research, mental health services, wraparound services. Find out what's being put out there. There is quite a bit. And
There's
find
lots of advocacy around guns, right? Moms Against Guns. There are organizations you can join. There's all sorts of things that you can choose to do and to become a leader in and to invest in.
Exactly. And we're talking about this summit or convening. I went online. I thought somebody must be doing these somewhere. And I did find one that's being done nationally. So we want to share that with you as well. And it's, let's see, did we?
Oh, it's not in this. Oh, you know what?
it's not in this one.
But anyway.
Okay, so there is a K-12 school security, safety and security national summit. And so that'll be on our resources.
We'll add it to the resource page.
We'll add it to the resource page. So there is something, and it's free. It's in November. And, we'll report out about that for sure and let you know. So then in the conference, we were able to have some discussion. What a crazy picture this is.
That's what it looks like. This is what an active shooter drill looks like. And this is what classrooms are supposed to do to barricade themselves from an active shooter. Now just looks that.
It's too much. It's just too much for me.
But across America, this is, anyway, so we need to recognize this and have conversations with our school teams, the leadership teams, and with our PTA leaders, right? This is a conversation you want to have with your PTAs about how you conduct these drills.
Yeah. So if you're on the board, you know some things that you can do. If you're not on a board, you know some things to tell your electeds that they can do. So we're hoping that we got you some information that's useful in this area.
And this is the resource page that will also, this PowerPoint is if you have found your way here to the Between Two Teachers YouTube channel, the PowerPoint is linked right here. And I'll also link it to if you're on Facebook watching this or wherever you may be watching this, I will put a link to this PowerPoint and this resource page right here. So you can follow up and please let us know. Here's who we are. Let us know what you think. And if you would like to talk about it some more, if you would like to add some information to us so that we know and have more input from you, we would certainly appreciate it. This is the QR code to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'd love to have you join us.
Absolutely. We're always collecting best practices, calls to action. So we hope that you will join us again. And it's a lot of information, but thank you so much for listening, watching.
Thank you, and until next time, I will say goodbye. Let's see, where is my?
Bye.
I don't want to do that. I want to stop recording.